borrow a machine. You're at 701 with Vice Mayor and Council members. That service regular meeting of the City Council for July 5th, 2022 order. Wait, you read the
Is it just me or is the mayor mute?
I think it's not even mute. There's a tiny little sound that's very staticky.
That's how it is for me.
I'm not hearing anything.
Okay, how about now?
Very good.
I apologize. Now we're almost 7:02.
No, now you're gone again.
Now? Can you hear me?
Very
Yes.
faint.
Okay. Scary. I apologize. My machine crashed over the weekend, so I'm using a borrowed machine. So a bit of chaos here. I apologize for that. So with that, welcome everybody, Vice Mayor, council members, staff to this meeting in service of July 5th, 2022. Councilmember McQuaid, would you please read the land acknowledgement?
The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now makes this their home.
Thank you. City Clerk, will you call the roll? Am I not hearable?
Councilmember Gary?
Here.
Mayor Jordan? I'm sorry, Councilmember McQuaid?
Here.
Councilmember Nason?
Here.
Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Here.
And Mayor Jordan?
Yes, I'm setting a chaotic tone, but I am here. Thank you. So with that, we will move straight on to City Manager report. This evening, we have none of the usual prior items. So City Manager, may the council have your report.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to take some time with the council and the community to recognize the events that occurred on June 26th and what happened, unfortunately, what did not happen in terms of a major devastating incident on our hill. First of all, a renowned recognition to the residents on the hill who faced this front on, and thanks to your preparedness and attentiveness, our safety personnel were able to access the area and really mitigate the incident in short order. And I realize how hard it must have been to receive that evacuation order and how scary it was as well. So again, thank you for enduring with us all. The Hill experienced two fires on June 26th, one near Cleveland and Washington Avenues, and another in the wildland area of the Hill. Fortunately, no structural damage or injuries were reported. And we would like to recognize the preparation, training, and mitigation efforts done by city departments and neighboring agencies that helped to quickly contain the fires. The following fire agencies worked with us to contain the fire before it reached any structures. That includes Berkeley, Richmond, El Cerrito, and Contra Costa Fire Protection District. Really just a fantastic response. Also, our police department was on hand and handled the evacuations incredibly well as road closures, and coordinated quickly with East Bay Regional Park District Police Department, who flew over with a helicopter to announce information which may not have been totally heard, but it certainly drew folks' attention that something serious was occurring, and that's part of that value as well. Also, the CHP was on scene to assist. As part of that incident, the police department quickly, with their responsiveness, were able to take a suspect into custody for suspicion of arson of those said fires. Over the last several years, our fire department and public works department have coordinated on fuel load management on the Hill, which was paramount with regard to why, one of the many reasons why this incident wasn't more disastrous along the Hill area. We've also recently retained the services of Urban Tilt, who continues to assist the city with vegetation management efforts along the Hill. I'd also like to note that our Fire Chief, Jim Boydo, is in the attendance as well this evening and available for questions at the conclusion of my report and on an ongoing basis. You will see that we provided, knowing that information is critical at this time, we provided a initial follow-up summary on June 29th, which was posted to our website and submitted out via our regular channels. So that's also on our website on an ongoing basis. And as we conduct a larger assessment of the incident, we will continue to transmit information as available. Staff is also preparing a substantive update for the council and associated Park and Rec and Open Space Commission with regard to our overall work for mitigation and long-term management of the Albany Hill. So that should be forthcoming to you as well. A couple of other updates, and then certainly understand there may be questions. With regard to Public Works, we are continuing a number of projects. The park surface repairs that I mentioned at the last meeting have been completed at Peggy Thompson, Pierce Street Park, Ocean View Park, and the Dartmouth Tot Lot. These are for the play structure surface areas, both for any defects or broken areas, but also to sustain them for a longer period of time for safety reasons. Our next two parks up for repair will be Memorial and Terrace Park, and that's actually underway right now, and we anticipate reopening those areas on the 11th of July. We are doing major sewer work along the East Shore Highway, Pierce Street and Cleveland Avenue. This project consists of rehabilitation of approximately 3,000 feet of sewers, along with existing lower laterals and manholes and associated street improvements. So please be aware of this area. And as always, thank you, City Clerk, for sharing the information as posted to our website. Construction alerts page will give you the most up-to-date information. Also, under Public Works, we are implementing some ATP striping and signage work. This will be a refresh to traffic striping in various locations around the city, such as faded stop bars, crosswalks, and lane markings. We will also be doing the remaining striping as noted in the active transportation plans, bicycle routes, and boulevards in various locations. The work is scheduled to begin Monday, July 11th and last for a couple of days. For those of you that were able to make it yesterday to our 4th of July concert in the park, it seemed well received. We had a great crowd and a fantastic band, and just like to acknowledge all the staff that put time in before and after that event to make it such a lovely place to be for the afternoon. And hopefully this is the first of other concerts to come. Our staff are actively planning now for 2 additional concerts. One will be Saturday, August 27th, and another on Saturday, September 24th. Just like to reiterate that as we get back on our feet through the COVID pandemic, sometimes events may look and feel a little bit different as we adjust to really just regrouping. So thank you in advance for bearing with us as we get our events back up and running. And we have an election coming up. And with that, we have some seats to be filled. Here is the election information webpage. We have 3 seats on the Board of Education, as well as 2 seats on Albany City Council. The nomination period, when folks can come in and obtain papers for running for those offices, will begin July 18th. And our city clerk is actively posting a wealth of information to these pages. It really is the best place to go for the most current information. As part of the election, we are also implementing ranked choice voting at large. This will be our first year doing this new type of voting methodology, and more information will be continuously updated on our webpage here, including a video and some additional information. We will also be planning workshops and trainings with candidates and the general community at large to learn more about this important transition and what it means when you actually go to vote. And August is around the corner somehow. We are proud to bring back National Night Out event. This is a well-loved event by the community with more block parties than you can imagine, and really excited to see this event coming back in full force. Please sign up to host a block party. All the information is here on the webpage, including the email address and also the opportunity to sign up online. And there are prizes available, giveaway items for kids, special gifts for the hosts, and usually a visit from city staff as we make our way around to the different block parties. So really just a great neighborhood event. So please take advantage of that upcoming event on August 2nd. And finally, we have a household hazardous waste drop-off event that is forthcoming on Sunday, July 31st for residents of Alameda County. Important to note that appointments are necessary. So you would need to go to stopwaste.org at home for more information, page posted here, and that registration to get an appointment will be required. And that concludes my report.
Struggling. Thank you very much, City Manager. If anyone attending, and I will note that there are 18 attendees. I know there have been requests to state how many attendees they are, so I'm trying to work that into my practice finally. There are currently 18 attendees. If anyone attending would like to ask a question about or comment on the City Manager's report, please press your raise hand button. You will have 1 minute. If you are on the phone, please raise your hand by pressing *6. I learned at the last meeting. Note this is for questions and comments on the City Manager's report only. If you have comments on matters not on the agenda, the time for those is next. In this and all comments and questions during the meeting, please address the council, not other attendees, and respect each person that has spoken. The council wants everyone to feel comfortable speaking and not be intimidated by others' comments or reactions. And so I see there's 3 hands raised. So if you could give them 1 minute each, please, City Clerk. Thank you.
Yeah, City Clerk, thank you very much. This is Jeremiah. I have a couple questions. One question is, when does the City Council and School Board start their training? And also, I noticed the pictures displayed from Independence Day, 4th of July from Memorial Park. I noticed there was just a few pictures displayed, and they were mostly of city staff, and there was one picture of the band. I didn't really see any photos of the public or, you know, everybody there, a big photo of just kind of an overview of the park. And I was kind of wondering that maybe next year we can have more than just a 3-hour event and make Independence Day at Memorial Park a lot bigger with a lot more people? Thank you.
Let me see if I can get one of them in at least. Regarding the status of Albany Hill Park, I'm concerned about access at this point in time. The report on June 29th stated that the community members were asked to stay away from areas affected by the fire, but the response was to put caution tape and roadway blockages on Taft Street and preventing any access to the park. That may have been just an initial response that inertia has prevented anybody from taking down, but maybe see pretty clear the northern part of the park was not impacted, was not affected by the fire. So I'd like some clarification as to what the current status is with regards to access to parts of the park, Albany Hill Park, that weren't affected by the fire. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I just wanted to comment on the election, the info being constantly updated on the webpage. I'm wondering if there are any other efforts to get information out to people besides using the webpage for people who aren't aware of it, have trouble navigating it, don't have internet access, don't have a device, don't have electricity, whatever it is. I'd like to know that the city is making an effort to reach everyone in the city and not just those people that actually go to the webpage. Thank you.
Thank you. And not seeing any other hands raised, we will come back to council and city manager. City manager, you may not have answers on the spot, and I always, sensitive to that.
Sure.
But there was a question. Well, it looks like you took some notes.
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Mayor. To the degree I can respond, I believe the training question was with regard to candidate training. Those dates will be forthcoming. We're coordinating with the training individuals to set those. And so that information will be spread far and wide, and of course to each candidate. Along the related,
sorry, if I could just jump in there a moment. When you say training, could you say a little bit more about what that training is? Because I think I know,
Sure.
but I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, and I'm guessing as to the nature of the question, but it would be specific for candidates running for election with our new election method and what that election method means, how it's different from what we used to have with just plurality at large, and the intricacies thereof. So we have a third-party group that will be assisting in that endeavor to walk everyone through what plurality ranked choice voting means for our city and specifically for candidates as we're working through the election season.
Thank you.
Sure. In terms of distributing information, yes, absolutely. We understand that the website is not the end all be all, and thank you for raising that. We had flyers at the 4th of July event. We've also had them at the Community Services Expo several months back now, and we'll continue to do that approach. We are also printing material, which is mailed citywide through our activity guide. So that's a handy one to have. We also have information at our city facilities, our public counters. So if there's other ideas, we'd be happy to hear how to transmit that information further. With regard to Albany Hill and access, it was an interesting time because it's also our regular time to close certain areas on the hill due to the fireworks. So that compounded some of the closure areas, but we are actively working to remove barriers where it's safe to do so, while we also continue to manage the areas damaged by the fire to ensure we're felling the trees appropriately and it's safe to return.
Very good, thank you.
Sure.
I want to take the opportunity to thank the fire department, the police department, all staff that responded, all the joint first responders. Obviously not a desirable event that occurred, but given what could have happened and what we see happen around the state. It turned out to be, I think it's fair to say, relatively benign due to the efforts of staff and the response of staff, the planning of staff. This wasn't just because they showed up rapidly and in a coordinated fashion on that day. There have been years and years of efforts that have gone into preparing for this moment. And so while there's certainly more to do, I think it's worth just taking a moment and being grateful for how things did turn out. I also want to thank Golden Gate Fields, which provided a place for all those who had to evacuate from the Hill to congregate. And they not only provided that place, but they provided a bit of hospitality. Their head security person was going around and meeting with people and handing out water. And so I think that was, given the circumstances, of some comfort, and particularly given where the event was, that people could actually see the Hill. So they could for themselves see what was going on, see that the fire seemed to be reducing. Not that we could see the fire, but we could see the smoke. So again, thank you all very much. Moving on to good of the city. This is for attendees to provide the council comments, information, and questions on an item that is not on the agenda. Please raise your hands now. By phone again is *6. Actually, I might be getting this confused. The city clerk will have to correct me. *9 is raise your hand and *6 is unmute. I can't remember which is which. I apologize.
Correct.
Okay. I got to get that into my notes better. By state law known as the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda except under extraordinary circumstances. Rather, items raised may be referred to a future agenda or to staff for comment. And there are still 18 attendees. Three members of the public have their hands raised. You go ahead and provide each 3 minutes, please, City Clerk. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. This is Jeremiah, and I have a couple public comments here. So I noticed that there is an Albany Municipal Code with no smoking cigarettes, just simple tobacco. Does no smoking on Solano, ordinance number 0803, came in effect June 19th, 2008. Now, does that include tobacco vape pens and vaping? Because we have a frozen yogurt shop with a bunch of little kids just trying to go eat ice cream and have a fun family, little event. Take your kids, eat frozen yogurt. It's summertime. Kids like to eat ice cream. And what if we got people vaping sitting right there next to little kids and they're exposed to secondhand smoke? Maybe we can update the ordinance to no vaping also. Since the ordinance says no smoking of any tobacco, and vaping is, liquid tobacco or something like that of that nature. So maybe we can update that ordinance. I just don't think it's appropriate, smoking around kids. It doesn't set a good example. With that said, there's a lot of drinking alcohol on Solano. I mean, you can't even smoke tobacco on Solano. I've never heard of anybody smoking a cigarette getting into a car accident or getting a DUI for smoking tobacco. But we can't smoke on Solano. I don't smoke. But so why is drinking so allowed? I mean, you got 5 tacos and beers, all this drinking in public, all these people walking around. And the bars in Albany, there's no liquor outside of the doors at the bar. At the Mallard, at Hotsy Totsy, Ivy Room, it's illegal to take alcohol out of the doors. So why is it legal to drink on Solano? And I noticed Hal's Cafe has a sign up to now turn into a bar to sell wine and beer. And it's right across the street from an elementary school and right next to a frozen yogurt shop. So it just doesn't set a good example with all these people going to be drinking wine and beer and getting drunk and hammered and blasted in public next to kids eating frozen yogurt. It does not set a good example for the city or the kids. So I'm just kind of fed up with all this drinking alcohol on Solano. I've encouraged sober events for a long time. you know, and also the bathroom at Memorial Park, the ADA button does not work going into the bathroom. It only works going out of the bathroom. So can we please fix that ADA bathrooms and we can clean those a little bit more often because they're really dirty. Thank you.
Hi. One of the things Nicole mentioned in her report was the forthcoming striping for the active transportation plan and the bicycle boulevards. I assume she's talking about Keynes and Adams. One of the issues that has always hung around the Keynes Adams bikeways was the issue of parking and whether the vehicle code, normal vehicle code requirements would be enforced. And I think the city's position has been unwavering. The answer is yes, they will be. But when I talk to neighbors and they talk about this upcoming striping and the bollards, a lot of them seem puzzled and confused. We're unaware that the parking requirements will now be different than they've been on Adams Street in this case, but also Keynes in the past. I think it's terribly appropriate for the city to have some sort of educational campaign that explains that there's going to, you know, besides these bollards, actually it could be a very general education campaign, but it should include an instruction or advice or on the requirements for parking on these streets after this again trial project is put in place. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Welcome.
Again, I want to express my disappointment again over the way that the sugar sweetened beverage tax monies are being spent. In various ways, I'm disappointed, but I'm particularly disappointed in the money being spent on for bike lockers when there are people in the city who are not, who don't have enough money to pay the rent, or they're they're strapped for cash. We could have done something like doing a universal basic income with that money, or other ways of supporting people who really need support, and not providing bike lockers for people who obviously don't really need them. I mean, they like the idea, but it's just, I feel like the priorities in Albany are not the priorities I'd like to see for my city, and I find it alarming and disappointing. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we move on to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendation will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a member of the public requests removal of the items from the consent calendar. Does any council member wish to pull an item? Councilmember Gary.
7-5.
7-5. Any other council member?
Mine was 7-5 as well.
Okay. Very good. Not seeing the Vice Mayor or Councilmember Quaid indicating, we will go to members of the public, and we have 19 attendees currently.
Thank you. This is Jeremiah. I'd like to pull 7-5 as well. I'm glad I'm not the only one. That makes me feel better. And also item 7-6-3, please.
7, I guess I'm a little confused. There's 7, 6.
7-6 and number 3 on 7-6 specifically.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it wasn't, don't have it loaded in my mind as a multi-part item, so I'll catch up on that. If you will, why don't you go ahead and offer your comments now on those?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll finish cutting my steak later. So 7-5, what is the Alameda County Home Together 2026 implementation plan, and where can the public and myself find out more information?
Very good. Got your question down on that. And if you go on to 7.6, part 3.
Okay. 7.6, part 3. Please explain resolution number 2022-76. Where can I please find more information, and where can the public please find more information? And what date is candidate statements supposed to be recorded with city clerk?
Oh, very good. Okay.
Thank you.
City clerk, if you could go ahead and admit the next member of the public.
I actually had 7.5 and 7.6 also. So I should go ahead and talk about those. Is that what you're going to tell me?
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Okay. 7.5, just to add to what I just said about the way that the sugar sweetened beverage tax money is used, I don't see Albany really actively trying to prevent homelessness in Albany, or even addressing it personally. I know that there's some programs that happen, but there's these things that these issues like the sugar sweetened beverage tax, how that's being used, how we vote to use it, and other ways that I see that Albany could be making a difference in people's lives, particularly trying to prevent people from losing their housing. And I think it's like nice that we're going to be supporting that, but I'd like to see some action from Albany that actually is meaningful and does something. 7.6, I just had a question. I noticed several years ago there were 2 or 3 seats and 2 or 3 candidates. There were the same number of candidates for seats, and so the election didn't happen. And I felt at the time and complained at the time, and I wanted to anticipate that maybe happening, and ask it or find out why that could be done, since I lost my democratic right to write in a candidate when the election was canceled, and make sure that never happens again. So I just wanted to bring it up in conjunction with this general municipal elections. So if for some reason there are 3 candidates for school board and there are only 3 seats, I don't want the election to be canceled, because I want everyone to have the right to write in somebody if they would like to write in somebody. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no other hands raised, bring it back to council. And so on, since none of the council members pulled 7.6, maybe that one we can go ahead and answer. I think there were 2 questions and 1 concern. It was a question that, as I understood, was asking for an explanation of resolution 2022-76. I don't know if staff has any comments to offer in that regard. And the resolution is available on the site to read. So I guess I guess maybe the question was, when is the candidate statement due to the city clerk? I think is the more important logistical question.
So the potential candidates or interested citizen who wants to run for office can make an appointment with me and pick up the candidate nomination packet. And within that packet will be all the information, including information about candidate statement and how to file and what to submit. And it is due the same time as the nomination packet is due back to me, which is August 12th at before 12:30 p.m.
Thank you. And I will offer, in terms of the concern that the city might again cancel the election. The situation in 2014, the city did not have any measures on the ballot. There were 3 candidates for 3 seats, and the city council at that time chose to cancel the election, which is allowed by the state elections code, as I understand it. Election, essentially the city council can declare the candidates who are nominated elected and then not hold the formal election. I'm not weighing in on the value of that right now. I'm just conveying what happened in the past. The city saves $30,000, $40,000 by doing that. We will see later in this meeting and in the next meeting whether or not there is a measure on the ballot. The way the registrar charges cities is it's the same charge whether there's 2 measures or 10 measures on the ballot. So If there is a measure on the ballot, I'm fairly confident in assuring you that we will have an election, at least on the city side. I cannot speak for what the school district will do. That's the school district's choice. So I think having answered that, we can go to 7-5. And Councilmember Nason or Councilmember Gary.
Thank you, Mayor Doran. So the Home Together 2026 community plan is online. It's very lengthy. I think that was Jeremiah's question, but you can find it online. You just type in Home Together, Alameda County 2026 community plan. As I looked through this plan and saw words on paper, but I didn't see how Albany would be benefiting by us supporting this plan. You know, we just approved over $1 million to Berkeley Food and Housing. So how does that figure into the housing elements or plans we have for the city? That's one question. The next one is, as far as affordable housing, I know the conversation we had with Berkeley Food and Housing, they spoke in detail about landlords not wanting to provide or work with them. Again, I want to know how that works with this plan, with us supporting with us. Will we be putting up centers for people that are unhoused, transition centers? They have a lot of ideas, but the implementation process, I did not see that. What is the timeline? When will this take effect here in Albany? So I'm a little concerned that it's just, you know, words basically stating the obvious, but not really honing on why we should support this. We've already spent money again to Berkeley Food and Housing to help with this, and how it's going to increase Albany's affordable housing in Albany. So those are just my concerns regarding this plan that has been outlined. And then also the money that's on the resolution. You know, I guess I couldn't find how that was forecast. What was that based upon? And I'm speaking specifically here in the city, not overall in Alameda. And where are we in that forecasting? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know. Staff wants to respond to that or those three questions.
I'm looking for the report author, which would be our Assistant City Manager, Isabel. Thank you, Ian.
Yes, hello, good evening. As far as this is a county plan that lays out the goals and the the roads to follow to be able to hopefully end homelessness by 2026 countywide. This is a plan, how it will benefit the city of Albany by adopting the plan, which has been adopted by most cities in Alameda County. I think the city of Albany is the last of 3 cities to adopt the plan. It will allow us to eventually, hopefully, receive additional funding as it becomes available from the federal government and the state through the county. And as far as what Albany has provided information to the county on the programs that we provide, so Albany Project Hope, Albany Cares, the services provided by our COVID engagement specialist, and it has all of these resources have been incorporated as well in the plan. So the county is aware of what we are currently providing, and it is accounted as part of what is available to address homelessness in Alameda County.
So my follow-up question to that, and thank you so much for answering those questions for me. When you speak to funding and how we're going to receive funding from the county, do we have a number? I don't know if they've been able to give that to Albany. If so, with that funding, where are we going to put it? Where are we using it? How is it going to be implemented here? Are we just relying on Berkeley Food and Housing to continue to provide services to house people outside of Albany? But what are we going to do with that funding?
Yes, we don't have information at this point as to how much money will be available from the county. The county also does not have that information. It's HAP funding that is coming from the state and the federal government, actually. And as far as future funding sources, those still remain to be seen. So we will continue to actively coordinate with the county so that whenever there is funding source available, we will take full advantage of it. And right now, our main contract provider is Berkeley Food and Housing Project, and they do provide, from homeless engagement on the street all the way through housing navigation and transitional services, as well as supportive services while in housing. So we have one provider providing the full gamut of services.
I can offer for my part from the meetings of Alameda County mayors that have been convened under the leadership of Mayor Ergin of Berkeley, that this is part of an effort to coordinate with the county. Historically, the county provided many of these services, but because of the difficulties that we've created in our society collectively, the cities have started providing services as well off their own funding. And so Mayor Ergin, again, as I understand, has led this effort to say, hey, county, let's coordinate. If we coordinate what we're doing, we'll probably get more out of our collective money. And by the way, we're putting our own money into it now. We don't get money for these services like you do from higher levels of government. So we would like to be partners in designing how to utilize that money. So I see this plan adoption as a step in that direction. Certainly not the final step, but a step, and the county has been receptive to it, which is nice, because the county potentially could have said, go away. So that's my understanding of the policy context that's evolving. Councilmember Nason?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I voted no on the previous iteration of this when it was presented. It was prepared, I think, by everyone home, or I'm not sure of the relationship between these plans. Oh, and by the way, the first sentence of the staff report is a link to the plan, so it should be pretty easy to find if you look at the staff report. But I thought, and I haven't tried to go through the two plans side by side, but I opposed the earlier plan because it seemed to focus so exclusively on and overwhelmingly on the housing first model, and all of the money being, or virtually all of the money and focus going into housing. And this seems to me to be a much more realistic and balanced approach that recognizes that homeless people have a wide variety of issues and needs, and seems to me a superior approach from a policy perspective. So I wanted to express support for this plan as compared to what we've been seeing in the many past plans promising to end homelessness. I don't think these policies will end homelessness, but I think that they will make progress and do so in a more effective and humane way than our past policy approaches. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Vice Mayor Tiedemann.
Councilmember Nason, you beat me to referring to that link in the first bit of the staff report. Staff report is always useful for this sort of information. And also, I just wanted to echo what Mayor Jordan says. I've been able to attend one or two meetings on this, and it's an aspirational plan, but it is really refreshingly a regional, high-scale, long-term plan to address causes of homelessness and try and actually, bend the curve from increasing homelessness towards actually decreasing it, which is one of the first graphs that's in there of, homelessness is increasing year over year. What resources need to be allocated at a county level and at every city to actually start moving that the other direction. So I think this is the earliest stage of it, of us endorsing it, and then there will be a lot of questions that we'll have to figure out, and also, you know, resources we'll have to figure out how to allocate. But it'll be better to do it, you know, as a county, as a region, and get that efficiency, I think.
Could I ask a question of Mayor
Yes.
and Vice Mayor Tiedemann? I'm curious what the, can you describe the relationship between this plan and the previous Everyone Home plan that we adopted for a countywide approach? Does this plan supersede that plan, or is it a different? Is there going to be a new Everyone Home plan? Does anyone know the answer to this?
So I wasn't as familiar with the Everyone Home plan as this plan. I mean, this is the plan that the 15 governments have been working on together. And so I see this one as preeminent over the Everyone Home plan, which is, you know, led by an organization and adopted by agencies, but is not a product of the agencies themselves. I don't know if Vice Mayor Tiedemann has any corrective to what I just said.
I think that sounds about, I think, you know, it mentions several other of in the background section of things that have gone into this as a sort of foundation and things this builds upon. So I think the previous plan is something it's building on. And this is taking things from a little higher up, though Isabel may or may not have some more thoughts on the matter. She's attended, I think, more meetings on this in more depth than we have.
Thank you. Isabel, will we see a new plan coming out of Everyone Home, or is this the plan now?
I believe this is the plan now, and it supersedes the previous one. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great. Thanks for all the questions and discussion. With that, not seeing any other indication of interest. Yes, Vice Mayor Tiedemann.
I would like to move consent.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Tiedemann, seconded by Councilmember McQuaid to pass the consent calendar as presented to the council. City Clerk, will you please poll the council?
Councilmember Gary?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilmember McQuaid?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. With that, we move to public hearing section of the agenda. There is one item on this section. This regards a potential property tax to fund emergency medical services, advanced life support, and fire protection. City staff, if you would care to present this item.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. What is before you for consideration of the council is Resolution 2022-77. It is a resolution that calls for the placement of a special tax measure on the November 8th general municipal election ballot, and it would submit to the voters an ordinance that would amend sections 4-7 and repeal 4-8 of the Albany Municipal Code, and would establish the emergency medical services, advanced life support, and fire protection special tax. It would also include certain exemptions and rebates for the special tax to qualifying very low income residents. And it would also authorize the city clerk and duly authorized officers to carry out any necessary procedures for the election. You've discussed this at numerous meetings in the past. At your most recent meeting in June, you asked that we update the ordinance to make sure that it was gender neutral. We did that. In addition, you had some concerns over section 4-7.1D, which was a finding, and requested that the fire chief review and make edits to that section, which has occurred. So at this point, what we are recommending is that you open the public hearing, take public comment, close the public hearing, and then if it is the pleasure of the council, adopt resolution 2022-77.
Thank you, City Attorney. And I will add that this would be replacing two existing line item property taxes and consolidating them into one and shifting the basis of the tax from a per residence basis to a per square foot of land basis. and would be taxing commercial, industrial, and residential properties all at the same rate. So we will get to the hearing. I'll open the public hearing. We get to public comment, but are there any questions from the council members at this time? Unsurprisingly, I don't see any indication of questions since we've considered this a few times before. So with that, the public hearing is open. I note again, 18 attendees in the meeting still. And please, City Clerk, if you will go ahead and admit the first member of the public to make a comment.
Thank you. This is Jeremiah. First off, I'd like to say I really appreciate the continuous update of how many attendees are in the meeting. I hope you continue that through the rest of this meeting. Also, I think that specifically the bigger businesses, for example, Target, Golden Gate Fields, should pay a lot more toward this tax than your average homeowner on their parcel tax, just because of the amount of revenue they create. So I don't know. I just hope that they pay a lot more tax with this. And one more question is it only going to be parcel tax, or is this going to be issued in some sort of sales tax as well when we buy things, you know, let's say at the grocery store or something like that? And also, what funds are available toward this from the state or federal that maybe we don't have to pay taxes as citizens or residents? Maybe there's a grant, or maybe there's something from the state or federal that could supplement this tax for them. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I can answer the first two of those questions with staff correcting me if I get it wrong. Large commercial would be paying more than is currently the case. For one of those two taxes, currently large or commercial, a commercial entity property pays twice what an individual residence pays, no matter what the size of the commercial property. That would no longer be the case under this tax. Both property owners would pay per square foot of land. So it would equalize in that regard, and in equalizing, it would have commercial pay more than it is currently paying. This is only a parcel tax. It's not a tax on sales revenue or anything in that regard. It's only a property tax. As far as funding from state and federal, that I can't speak to. So maybe staff can say some words on that.
Sure, Mayor, I can start. And if you'd like more explanation, we have others on hand. But I can say with confidence that we are pursuing those opportunities with regard to funding, and the fire department worked tirelessly over the last several months to prepare a grant application, which, if awarded, which we should find out later in the summer, will help supplement and extend and stretch the dollar of these potential funds for that necessary seventh person that has been addressed and discussed by the council with regard to the overall team in the fire department and our ability to respond. So we will be certain to inform the council and the community once we have information on that grant funding opportunity.
Thank you, City Manager. I would also offer that we are pursuing discussions with UC and various channels to motivate some collaboration on UC providing some funding in kind, probably not 100% financing for the first responder services that Albany provides, but something. I cannot say anything about where those discussions are at, but just know that we are pursuing them. Are there any comments, discussion? Well, first of all, let me say public hearing closed. And is there any discussion, comments, further deliberation by council members? Yes, Councilmember Neeson.
Yeah, I first want to express my appreciation for the softening of the language around the relationship between this measure and the continuation of the emergency medical services program from a hard link that this would be is necessary to continue those programs to helping assure that the city can continue to provide them. I continue to have concerns about the way that this is structured. I do feel that in an environment in which our parcel taxes are so shaped by Prop 13 that an exemption based on income that does not take into account the broader issue of wealth is regressive. And I don't see this as a progressive tax. My preference would be to link the tax not to the square footage of a property, but to either the number of households or the number of individuals who will be receiving, who will be covered potentially by the service, and then using any excess funding to needs-based assistance that takes into account wealth as well as income. And that's one issue with this tax in particular. And more generally, as you've all heard me before, I do feel very strongly that, we are now probably one of the very highest tax jurisdictions in the state of California, and we still have a lot of unmet, really basic needs around safety with our with safe crossings, with lighting, and we have paving. We still have on our books a policy of going slow with eucalyptus removal. I think we absolutely must revisit that policy, and we may find it extremely expensive to do the forest work that needs to be done. And I do feel very strongly that all of this should be taken into account and presented to the residents, a kind of long-term plan that assures that we can pay for these various things that we are really obligated to pay for, as well as our yet still growing pension liabilities. So for these reasons, I have profound concerns, but I am going to vote yes to put this on the ballot, but will not necessarily vote for it myself or support its passage. I do want to see more about what I think we still have some time between now and November to do more work about these concerns, and I hope we do, but I'm going to vote yes to put it on the ballot so people can pass it. Obviously, of course, the emergency medical services program is fundamental, I think, to our residents. And it would be one of the last things I would cut, not the first thing I would cut if it were up to me. So that's why I just want people to understand I'm voting to put it on the ballot, but I disagree with the social justice approach. I would prefer a needs-based system. And I'm troubled. I'm not as troubled as I was when we weren't producing the comprehensive annual financial reports. That was really much more basic, but I still think it's very important that we develop a long-term financial plan that takes into account the whole range of things that we need to do as a city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councilmember Geary.
Thank you. Mayor, thank you, Council Member Mason, for your statement. So I guess my question to you, Mayor Jordan, we were on this committee to work to try to get this on. Would you like to look at it and try to address some of the concerns? Or what are your thoughts before we move forward and see if we can somehow streamline this a little bit better to address some of those concerns that Councilmember Mason brought up?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Gary. I was going to ask staff about some of those aspects. So is it possible to structure a exemption rebate program based on total household wealth rather than income? That was one of them. I'm just listing the questions on my mind and trying to go through them. So I think that was one. That was, if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the interests. That would be a more social. Yes.
Yeah. To clarify, I'm not suggesting that a rebate or exemption program be based on home wealth or home equity or such considerations, but rather that that our tax be structured to support the general fund in a manner that relates to the service that we are putting on the ballot, but that for social justice purposes, if we want to spend money and, putting out an exemption and not receiving money is a type of expenditure. If we had a straight expenditure type of program that focused on households that have both low income and low wealth, I think that we could, what we would be doing would be much more effective and fair. So I'm not suggesting that we restructure the exemption. I'm basically suggesting I'd rather we didn't have the exemption and that we used the funding, any excess funding that might relate to this in the general fund to help provide programs supportive for families that don't have, who have neither high incomes nor family wealth.
Councilmember Gary?
Okay, thank you for explaining that. I'm not in agreement with that. I guess for clarity purpose, if this passed on the ballot, and is the funding going into the general fund or is it going towards the fire department's budget? Like, is that where the money's going? I don't want the money to be placed in a general fund and we're spending this to help the fire department, the supplies or whatever they need as far as outreach and anything like that. So if that's not where the money is going, then I'm not for that.
Well, it does go to the fire department, but then the money that currently supports the fire department stays in the general fund. So it ultimately, this is supportive. This is designed to take a burden, both to replace the two existing taxes and also to take a large burden off of the general fund. So there will be more money available in the general fund if this passes.
Yeah, I guess I have a bit different perspective, which is that the general fund is increasingly subsidized transport, EMS transport, which is an optional, not a required service of the city. And so to say, yes, the general fund will have more money, and will have more money that it should have, because the general fund wasn't designed to subsidize this extra service. From my perspective, that's not required. And so in that regard, I don't see this as like a bait and switch. And I think that's why I was more supportive of the harder language, which is we can't afford to keep subsidizing this medical transport when the county contract with Falck is a zero cost service to the cities that avail themselves of that service. And the voters need to decide, do they want to have transport by our fire department with the advantages that provides? Or would they rather not pay the tax? Because I don't think we can keep going in the track that we're going, where the general fund just keeps having to subsidize it more and more and more.
That's where we don't agree. To me, this is a very high priority service that is part and parcel of living in Albany, that this is something that we have had for many years and that we expect to have. But again, I'm not trying to derail this at the last minute. I've made these comments, especially about the bigger picture of our need for long-term planning many times. I'm just explaining my rationale. I'm voting for this in order to put it on the ballot, but I continue to have serious concerns about these two aspects of it. The aspect of exemptions based solely on income, and because of the tie-in to Prop 13 unfairnesses in our parcel tax system, and my concern about the need that I see for long-term financial planning for the city as a whole. But again, I'm not trying to derail this, just explaining my vote.
And I will explain my vote, which is that this is a huge step towards perfection. It is not perfection, but it is a giant step towards perfection in terms of economic justice within the parameters that a city is allowed to operate under state law. It is actually going to, aside from the exemptions and rebates, it's going to provide an actual tax cut for residences on smaller amounts of property. It will be a tax increase for residents on larger amounts of property. And to me, there's some rationale to that, which is the larger the property, the farther the fire service has to travel. Not maybe any one given property, but every larger property contributes to having to travel further for response time. So yeah, I just see this as a huge improvement in equity should the voters choose to, should the council choose to put it on the ballot, and should the voters choose to support it. In terms of general fund versus special fund, I did ask that question of the city attorney. Could this go on? Can a property tax be a general revenue tax? Because then we would avail ourselves of simple majority approval. And her response was no, it has to be a special tax.
Yes. Yeah. I think she's right about that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other? Yes, Vice Mayor Tiedemann.
I'll just say that I agree with the mayor's comments. I joined him in opposing the previous version of this in the last election cycle because it was regressive. I think this is the right way to do it. And I thank everyone for doing the work to get it here. And if we're ready, I'm happy to move a motion.
I'll second.
All right, I'll take that, I guess, as a motion in a second. Thank you. Vice Mayor Tiedemann has moved to approve Resolution 2022-77, and Councilmember McQuaid has seconded. City Clerk, if you would please poll the council.
Councilmember Nason?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Yes.
Councilmember Gary?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
And Councilmember McQuaid?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Is that acetone? Sorry.
Oops. Oh, I've certainly had my many things this meeting, so I owe everybody a lot. So yeah, absolutely nothing there. Moving on to unfinished business. The next item regards a potential 5-year extension of waste collection services. This is the contract with Waste Management, Alameda County, and approval to issue an RFQ, which is a request for qualification, or a request for proposals for waste stream separation monitoring services as required by Senate Bill 1383. And I see our sustainability coordinator is here. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Greetings, City Council. I believe we're waiting on a couple other members of staff and our consultants, but I can get started with an introduction to this item. My name is Lizzie Crott. I'm the city's sustainability coordinator, and I am joined this evening by Jeff Bond, community development director, and consultants from HF&H Consulting. I see them joining as I'm saying this. The item before the council this evening is an update on the status of the negotiations between the city and Waste Management of Alameda County for a new collection services agreement. Staff is recommending that council authorize the city manager to extend the current collection services agreement with Waste Management. In addition, we are asking that if extended, the council authorize the city manager to issue either an RFP or an RFQ for third-party SB 1383 compliance services not covered under the current collection services agreement. As the council is aware, The current collection services agreement approved by Council in 2011 is set to expire on March 31st, 2023. The collection services agreement is one of the city's largest contracts, which affects all single-family, multifamily, and commercial properties and ratepayers in the city. The agreement is critical to the city's core services, critical to the environment, and critical to the health, safety, and well-being of the community. At current rates, Albany customers pay approximately $4.6 million per year to Waste Management. Since 2020, the city, in partnership with HF&H Consultants, has been negotiating a new collection services agreement with Waste Management. These negotiations have not led to an agreement on terms and rates. In particular, the Waste Management proposal would result in significant rate increases. Therefore, staff is recommending that the council authorize the city manager to extend the current collection services agreement for an additional 5 years until March 31st, 2028. Although the current collection services agreement does cover collection of recyclables and organics, the current agreement does not include all necessary components for full SB 1383 compliance. Therefore, staff is also requesting that the City Council authorize the city manager to issue an RFP or RFQ for SB 1383 compliance services, including route reviews and associated record keeping and reporting. City staff, the city attorney, and HF&H consultants are available to answer any questions the council may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any council members have questions? Councilmember McQuaid.
Yes, thank you. I understand the difference, excuse me, between an RFP and an RFQ, but I'm curious as to why you didn't recommend one or the other. Is there one that's preferable in your mind?
I can start answering this. I think the reason we didn't recommend one over the other is because we're still trying to figure out the best route. We weren't necessarily planning to have to contract out for SB 1383 compliance services from not a hauler. So this is still fairly new. A lot of cities in the area are still trying to procure services for SB 1383 compliance. And I think just because it was such a fresh landscape, we weren't sure if we wanted to go RFP, RFQ, and we haven't totally ironed out the details of what we would include in either. So either RFP or RFQ would work, and we want to qualify the expertise and not go low on price.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I understood that you were asking us to give you the flexibility, and I'm sorry that I didn't quite understand that. Thank you.
No, no problem.
Any other questions from council members? Not seeing any, and I've been noting actually the number of attendees, but now I realize some of those attendees are staff. So I'm going to estimate there's 10 attendees from the public who are here in the room. And City Clerk, if you would go ahead and admit the member of the public who would like to comment.
Hi, good evening. This is Jeremiah. Hi, Lizzie. It's great to see you again. Love your meetings. You're such a wonderful staff member. One of the best at these meetings. I really enjoy watching the climate action. It's really fun. Besides that, I just want to bring to awareness. I remember in your climate action meeting, we were talking about how Waste Management wants to videotape and record all of our garbage when it's dumped. And to me, that's a complete invasion of privacy. I mean, just to let everybody know, I mean, Lizzie, you can correct me if I'm wrong after I make my comment. But I remember that's one of the things we talked about, that Waste Management proposed that every single trash can, recycling can, green waste can is going to be on camera, videotaped. So everything we throw away is going to be recorded. And I think that's just an invasion of privacy, you know, and the purpose of it is, I don't know what the purpose of it is. I mean, I kind of do, but it's just like, they're going to be recording our trash. And if they find that, oh my gosh, we put, you know, a piece of cardboard in the green and instead of the blue, or vice versa, we're going to get fined. now we're being ticketed and taxed on our trash. And it's just kind of invasion of privacy to me. And I'm just not really for that at all, at all. And the fact that these waste management trucks keep getting bigger and bigger and heavier, and they're just completely damaging our roads. I mean, we repave our roads in these big, huge, heavy trucks. Probably the heaviest trucks that drive down our residential streets is waste management. And all that weight back and forth is just causing damage to our roads. And so waste management is responsible for the damaging of our roads. So, they need to pay us back. So I don't believe it's fair for the price hikes either. It's what, double now, or it's going to be double. I mean, the price on trash is just getting way more expensive. And so, number one, I don't think it should be doubled or whatever the price increase is going to be for everybody. I don't think that our trash should be videotaped and recorded. Invasion of privacy. And these trucks are getting bigger and bigger. So I would suggest smaller trucks, lighter trucks driving our streets. That's pretty much it. Thank you for your time, Lizzie. Great to see you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Welcome. You are still on mute. If you may not know that, I know that happens to me. You are showing as still being on mute.
Virginia Harrington.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Virginia Harrington, and I work for Waste Management of Alameda County. And I just really wanted to thank staff for all of their time during the meetings that we had with HF and H. And although I'm disappointed that we're not able to come to an agreement for a contract that includes new enhancements, I definitely look forward to continuing to work with Mark and Jeff and Lizzie, and really appreciate all their time and efforts. And you want to express that the waste management team looks forward to continuing to support the Albany community, provided that you approve this extension this evening. And of course, just available in general, and really do love working with your community. So thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any other hand. Oh, yes, another hand went up. Hello.
Hi, I haven't really looked at this closely, so I just have a question. If the prices do go up, are there options in the waste management agreement where people could have your waste picked up less frequently, and have it be cheaper? So, for instance, could you have them? I don't know if this is already an option, because I just haven't thought about it till this moment. But would it be possible to have a once a month pickup or once every other week pickup, and then have it be half the price or a quarter of the price to save us money? Because we, for example, frequently don't even put our cans out, and yet we're paying as if we did. So I was curious about that. Thank you.
Thank you. And looking again to see if any other hands go up. Not seeing any. Bring it back to the council. Staff, I don't know if any of those items you're interested in responding to.
I can respond to the last public comment. There is state law that mandates that we require frequent pickups. We have weekly pickups. Customers are able to downsize their service at any time if they feel like they have service that is too large for the waste they're producing, but pickup frequency, there's not a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, my understanding is a public health nexus, essentially. Council members, do you have any questions or concerns? Yes, Vice Mayor Tiedemann.
I just wanted to thank staff. As the staff report makes clear, this has been a somewhat difficult process that hasn't really gone exactly as we wanted. So I think extending what we've got for a couple of years and exploring other options is probably the right way to go, so that we can, figure out what else we can consider. So much appreciated, and I would be ready to move it forward.
Thanks. I'll maybe respond to some of the other comments as I understand.
Could I second that to keep it on the table?
Okay, sure. It is so just to keep it clean, it's been moved to approve resolution 2022-78 by Vice Mayor Tiedemann, and it has been seconded by Councilmember McQuaid. In terms of price doubling or going up dramatically, the action that is in front of the council is specifically not to have that happen. So it is to extend the existing agreement, which has certain formulas for price increases year over year, which those formulas have been being used for the last 10 years. They have resulted in an average, and I won't have the exact number on the top of my head, but a 2 to 3% increase per year. So should the council pass this resolution, that would likely continue. It might be higher because inflation has gone out of control, but there will not be a dramatic 40% increase, which was what was otherwise on the table. As far as videoing of waste, my understanding from a prior study session or meeting is that Waste Management of Alameda County is already doing that for their own purposes. So I don't know that that's something that the city really has control over. I have a feeling Waste Management might have implemented that on its own dime for its own reasons in terms of maintaining its equipment, both sorting and hauling. And yeah, I think the last was the trucks are too heavy. That was there was a discussion about that in the Transportation Commission. That was interesting. And one of the consultants challenged the commissioner who brought it up to design lighter trucks and get them out in the market and make some money. He didn't accept that challenge. I would note that the city, in contracting for this service, it's on the city to provide the streets that can support the trucks, vice versa. You know, the city is contracting and basically inviting these trucks into the city. So with that, that's all I have to say on that. I don't think there's any other comments, I would guess. So we can go to City Clerk. Please poll the council.
Councilmember McQuaid?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Yes.
Councilmember Gary?
Yes.
And Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, City Clerk. Thank you all. Moving to the first item of new business.
Mayor?
Oh, yes.
Can you take like a 3-minute break?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. 3-minute break. So that'll bring us back just for my own mind, 8:26, because I sometimes walk away and forget to mark the time. All right. Thanks all. for a moment there as the city clerk's screen went from black to not black. I thought, oh, we're actually going to get to see her. But no, it's the clock. She doesn't get the fame and glory of having her face on the screen, despite all the work she does. Well, welcome back. You're at 8:27. Thank you. So we will move to the first item of unfinished business, which is a potential amendment of the employment agreement for city manager services. Staff, would you like to present this item?
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. What is before you for consideration is a resolution 2022-79 to approve amendment number 3 to the city manager's employment agreement. The city manager has an employment agreement that was effective as of January 2022 of 2018. It's been amended on occasion. This third amendment is stemming from a request from the council after a performance evaluation conducted in May to increase the city manager's compensation and to modify the severance payment in the agreement. Specifically, under Section 3 of the compensation, there is an increase to the base salary, which then affects also the total salary because the city manager, as well as other management employees who have served for 10 years or more, get a 5% additional increase in salary for longevity pay. So the recommended or the requested amendment to the compensation, total compensation, would be $235,020. I do want to note that the base salary that is listed in the amendment is incorrect. It's a typo, and it should read $223,828, which then when you do 5% of that will still equal the full total compensation I just referenced of $235,020. In addition, the additional amendment to the agreement provides for a severance of 6 months if the city council terminates the agreement without cause. I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, what is before you is a resolution that would approve these amendments to the contract, and it would include the revision I just mentioned on the typo to the base salary. I do want to note that if the council does move forward with this amendment, I would bring back in the future an amendment to the municipal code. The municipal code under section 2-3.1, which was adopted back in 1958, references a severance payment under the city administrator's section of the ordinance, and it is a little bit, it wouldn't match with the provisions of this agreement, and it could be potentially incompatible with new government code provisions. So in general, cities just deal with severance as part of the city manager's agreement. And so I'd recommend that at a future meeting, we bring forth an amendment to just delete the reference to severance in that municipal code section. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do any council members have questions?
I do. So Mayor Jordan, were you able to speak with the city attorney about some of the things we discussed in our meeting?
Yes, and so the what we discussed will need to come back to open session to establish the body that we're interested in establishing. So that was one action item. And so I will plan to have it on the next agenda so we can consider taking that action. I'm being a little cryptic because it's not it's not the agenda item we're on, so I don't want to transgress.
Right, and I understand that, but I know in our conversation, we basically wanted to see if that could be a possibility. So I know you're trying to be cryptic with it, but I just need to confirm that did that conversation happen? What are the next steps, and how do we move forward from there? That's all.
Mayor, I'm happy to briefly answer that with the acknowledgement that it's not on the agenda, but knowing that there is some interest in having that answered. I think what we would do, as the mayor mentioned, is that at a future agenda, the next meeting, we could bring back agenda item to allow the council to appoint an ad hoc committee of 2 council members to discuss maybe a more formalized performance evaluation process. And depending on what the recommendation is of the ad hoc committee, that may require an additional amendment to the city manager's agreement, because there is provisions for the performance evaluation in the agreement. But depending what it is, it may not require it. But we would bring that back at a future meeting just to have the council formally approve the ad hoc committee. And then obviously any recommendations from the ad hoc committee would come back to the council as well.
Okay. I'm going to add some context on the increase in severance, and appreciation of the city attorney for exploring and noticing the conflict or the disagreement that would potentially arise should this amendment be approved with an increase in the severance period. 1958, and this will be quite germane with what I'm about to relay, which is that we were provided the severance sections of the agreements with the prior, I think, 3 city managers, if I recall correctly. And the proposal to increase it from 90 days to 6 months was based on all 3 of those prior agreements having a 6-month severance. So you continue to wildly outperform your predecessor, city attorney. None of them caught that there was this conflict. So again, thank you for your tremendous service to the city in that regard. But I just thought it'd be helpful for those who are in the meeting, attending, members of the public, to understand that's where this severance concept is coming from. It's to align it with prior city manager agreements should it go forward. And with that, yes.
So with that said, are we going to amend that before approving and do it right as it is processed, or just if you can bring clarity to that? Because I think it makes sense if we do it the correct way instead of going back and fixing the problem after something has been approved.
I think it's the pleasure of the council. My suggestion is, if you do want to move forward tonight, I would bring back the amendment at the next meeting and introduce that. It's a quick deletion, frankly, of the sentence. So I could bring that back at the next meeting. And I think that would still be appropriate for you to move forward with the contract as proposed.
Is there a rush to approve it now? Can we just wait until the next, hold off, and bring the entire thing back for it to be approved?
I think that's maybe a question for deliberation after public comment, because that's kind of a council level discussion. Thank you, but I will make sure that we come back to that and bookmark that. Are there any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. Noting, I think at this time there are maybe 8 attendees in the meeting. City Clerk, if you could admit the first member of the public.
Hi, this is Margie Marks. I'm one of those people who believe that we should have an elected mayor. I also believe, not based on any fact, research, whatever, just my feelings, that the elected council seems to me to be totally indebted to the city employees who are not elected. That being said, city managers make a lot of money. I do not question that our city manager works hard. She is paid well, and I expect her to work hard. It's just unclear to me exactly how much the raise is going to be. I see she's getting 10% plus a 5% longevity raise that she's entitled to. Plus she'll also get the raise that the management in Albany gets. So I don't see in the documents how much that management raise is. I'd just like to know exactly what percent raise she's getting. It appears to be at least a minimum of 15%. Do any of you know how much the average Albany citizen makes a year? The median income for married couples, that's 2 people in Albany, is $145,380. For all households, the income is $95,400. To me, to give this large of a wage increase, it feels as though you're heaping privilege upon privilege. And to give someone over the 15%, I think you could have spread it out over 2 years. That would have been better. I understand the city may feel the need to be competitive with other cities in the wages they pay the city manager. What I do not understand, and would like to hear from the council members, and hearing from you, Mayor, that it was something that happened in the past. Just let me know now how it helps the city, the decision to pay the city manager or any city employee 6 months' wages if they leave city employment. In this case, we're talking about at least $120,000. Where's that money coming from? If you council approve us, you must know where it's coming from. And as a citizen who's heard the council grapple with how much we have to have money for example, to pay the Shuumi tax or for a laundry program, which were much smaller amounts, I want to know this. Where's this $120,000 coming from? How does it help the citizens of this city, for any city employee to get paid 6 months' wages when they're not working for the city? You were elected to serve the citizens. Please let me know how that helps the citizens of this city when you're paying an ex-employee for not working more than the median income of people who live in Albany.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, this is Jeremiah. I agree with Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, Janelle, Gary, Councilmember Gary, and I agree with Margie as well. First of all, I think the city clerk should get a raise. If the city manager's getting a raise, the city clerk needs a raise for sure, because Ann does a lot of great work too, and I never see her on the agenda getting raises. I'm really kind of concerned because, yeah, I feel like it's competition with other cities, but we only have 20,000 people. And, it's kind of like the city manager is getting $10 per citizen. I just think, the highest paid employee of the city, and now it's over $100 an hour. I think it's what, $102, $103 an hour. I think it's just either the same or the exact same as the police chief or the fire chief. And I just don't know the hours, the city manager. I know the city manager is here on these lengthy city council meetings that start sometimes at 5 and go till after midnight. That's a whole 8-hour job after working all day, and I kind of feel bad in a way for Nicole that sometimes she's pulling 16 hours a day, like today, for example. I think the city manager does deserve money, but it's just constant increases, just continuous increases. And I don't know. I'm not trying to get in anybody's business personally. I know we all have to make money and have a job. I'm lucky to be a longshoreman. I make $200,000 a year, so I'm fine. And I just, in a way, I do feel the city manager does deserve it. Absolutely. It's just, I don't know where all this money keeps coming from. Is it coming from our general fund, from our sugar sweetened beverage taxes? So I just want to say that if we're going to keep giving the city manager a raise, we need to give a shout out to the city clerk, to Ann, because Ann needs a raise too. She's doing a wonderful job. So I know that's not on the agenda, but maybe Ann could be put on the agenda for a city clerk raise. But I'll try to stick to the topic here. So, Nicole, you do a very good job. I really think you do a good job. I'm trying to get to know you better. And I do think you deserve a raise, but just maybe not so much right now because we're in a down economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, again, I'm under a different name now. I also have some concerns about this. I pretty much support everything that Margie Marks said. And then I had a few questions. I know that there have been resolutions over the last few years where the city manager's either gotten a raise, or I know that her administrative leave got, I think, doubled, or at least she has a huge amount of paid administrative leave. And I questioned then and I question now if she's such a valuable employee, how she could be paid to not be working for so many hours a year. I also wonder, I'm unclear on the process. So I guess there's an annual performance review. It would be just great if somebody explained to me. Is there an annual performance review? And so you review it, and then every time you review it, you decide that she's doing her job and therefore she should get more money. That just doesn't make any sense to me. How about if she's doing her job and therefore she deserves the money she's getting? And I also agree with the concern about the 6 months leave if she's laid off or fired or whatever the polite term is for that she would be paid for 6 months, which I think also included health coverage. I think it's the whole package. So I know that city managers, as Margie pointed out, make a lot of money. I looked at comparable cities with similar populations, and I see that they make a lot of money, but I'm concerned about how you're spending our money. You are here to represent the community. You were elected by the community. And I think that if you were to walk up and down the street and randomly stop people in the community and ask them how they feel about giving even more money to the city manager or other ways that you're spending money, that they would not agree to it. And they would not be happy with the way you're representing them. So I have my concerns. I know you're going to do it. I know you're going to pass all of this anyway, and my concerns don't matter, and Margie's concerns don't matter. But I think it's important to express it and I would like to see you more concerned about how you're spending our money. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. You are still on mute. If you are speaking, we can't hear you. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Council. I believe that the Council should establish some goals and objectives, as a lot of cities do and can do, and that the city manager should meet those goals and objectives. This has not occurred here. You should have a performance review where goals and objectives have been met. If they have not been met, then you have to determine the parameters for which this individual should be given a raise. You're at a city deficit. The budget that you have a strategic plan and there's a deficit. That in itself negates itself from you giving any raises without doing a overall performance rating for this individual based on criteria that services the community. That's what I wanted to say. I believe that right now, the city manager's raise and increase should be reflective of how the city is run and how the residents and the current residents' needs are being met. In the city of Albany, there's not that happening. The city should be further along as far as engagement, and I just don't see where you're going to have the money either to give this person a raise without a formal review process. You must have that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Not seeing any hands raised. More hands raised. Bring it back to council. And I might, yes, go ahead, Councilmember Mason.
I just want to say how that I think that Albany is extremely fortunate to have the services of City Manager Almager. I don't know of any more hardworking and very skillful operation under often extraordinarily difficult circumstances. It is an unfortunate reality of tiny city life that we compete in a market for with much larger cities, but we need to have that high level of skill. I think that the review of the city manager is the council's job, and it's this is it's a good point that the city council must do its work, but I think that we do a reasonably good job if we take if the excellence of our city manager is any indication of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councilmember Gary.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you could be so kindly address the public, it sounds like that they're wanting to know the process that's been in place, how we came up with that amount. That would definitely give them some insight on the process. Basically, one of the commenters or participants stated that they wanted to know how the money was spent. And I think that needs to be outlined to bring clarity to it. Basically, I think, you know, we can do better. We've had this conversation. You know what my thoughts are on this. If we're going to do anything that's going to be lucrative, we need to do things in order. And so with that said, I'll digress and let you take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so with that invitation to address some of the questions, the process has been, I would say the timing has been, looking back through the history, has moved around a bit. So I think what you heard about the discussion about an item coming back regarding an ad hoc committee, is to explore bringing more formality to this. There have been times in the past where there's a performance review, but it isn't necessarily tied with when the raise occurs. The agreement for the city manager does hold that the cost of living adjustments that occur for employees who are not represented by a union is a compensation change that the city manager also receives. So oftentimes there has not been a compensation change associated with the performance review. It just happens whenever there is a cost of living increase that occurs with the rest of staff. In that regard, the city clerk does get raises. The city clerk gets raises along with all other city staff, or commensurate with all other city staff who are not represented by unions. The unions negotiate their own agreement for increases in compensation each year. So I agree, she does an amazing job. And I don't know how she feels about her salary. We don't want to get into that, but she does, just want to be clear that she does get increased compensation in line with the other staff. The funding for the city manager's salary comes out of the general fund. So not from any, and the sugar, sweet, and beverage tax technically goes to the general fund. And if you've been following the council, we're working on potentially partitioning that off so that we spend it for the intent that the voters explained. But in general, the funding for the city manager's salary comes from the general fund. The total raise, that was one of the first questions. The total raise is 10%, unless staff corrects me otherwise. You can see that if you look through the staff report and you divide the proposed compensation by the prior compensation, it's a 10% increase. And I see the city attorney nodding, so that was the intent of the council, and I believe that is implemented in the amendment that is in front of us. Severance, from my perspective, severance helps residents because the city manager is somewhat uniquely exposed to the market. The city manager is the only staff member who is employment is essentially under the control of the council in our council manager city form of government. And the council, you know, being subject to the winds of politics, the politics could change. And I've seen this happen in cities, and a new council comes in and eliminates a city manager for reasons I would say aren't necessarily always having to do with their performance. I've seen cases where the city manager actually is trying to do the right thing, trying to hold the council to what is legal. The city council is not interested in that, and they want to go their own way. And so they get rid of the city manager to get rid of that voice that they find annoying. And so because it is such a unique job, it's not the kind of job that you can just go out on the market and find another job in relatively short order because there are so few of these positions. So having this level of severance makes the position more attractive for candidates to occupy, because then they're not quite as exposed. They have that latitude of time to actually find another position should something like that occur. I think it also provides a bit of incentive to a city council not to be precipitous in its decision-making regarding the city manager, because there is going to be a cost to making a precipitous decision. So those are my perspectives on that question. Those are only my perspectives. Let's see. So the process generally, yes, there's been an annual performance review. As I say, I would say it's not been exactly regular what time of year occurs. So there has been some shifting back and forth. Sometimes it's been at the end of the calendar year, sometimes it's been at the end of the fiscal year. In terms of why is the manager provided so much leave, I don't have a market answer for that. And in terms of how much city managers get paid, we live in an economy that has chosen to pay people different amounts based on the work they do. So that's the world that we have created, that we live in. And then we continue. And so market forces being what they are, this is what the market requires. In terms of leave, I will offer, whenever the city manager goes away, she encourages us to consider that we can continue emailing her. And I personally have mixed feelings about that, but that's her choice. I try to give her the space when she's on vacation, but she's always like, I'm going away. I mean, she is clear when she's going away, but it's very rare that she's going off email. That's been very rare in my year and a half so far. By and large, she is available all the time. Sort of incredible. In terms of speaking for myself and the reasons that I am supportive of this increase in compensation, the city manager supervises over 100 employees, directly, indirectly. The city budget, while often, if you look at the general fund, it's mid 20 million. That is not the totality of the city budget. People often don't remember the capital spending that is overseen, which is a complicated process that can go awry. And so if you add the capital spending in, that's like another 10 million a year. So the city manager is responsible for the operation of $35 million a year enterprise. And if the city manager is not performing, the consequence of that lack of performance is much more likely to be problematic or even catastrophic for the organization than anybody else, any council member, single council member, any single staff member. So it's the most critical position by far from my perspective. Her increase in compensation was already falling behind the increase in CPI for the Bay Area over the past number of years. She has, looking at Transparent California, which is a nice website to access salaries from different positions, basically any position in any government in California. She is paid the least of all 14 city managers in Alameda County. She is paid less than the city managers from Hercules on through Albany. From my perspective, there is absolutely no excuse for that, given her performance. That just makes no sense to me. And that includes smaller cities, Piedmont, and it includes El Cerrito. And El Cerrito was made the headlines last year because they spent beyond their means for 8 out of 11 years. So the state auditor said they were on the verge of bankruptcy, and their city manager is paid more than our city manager. Now, that's not to blame their city manager. I don't know the mechanics of what happened there. That's where city council could go awry. I don't know who it is, but nonetheless, we don't have that situation here. I think since we had our closed session, the demonstration of the city manager's leadership over the years with what happened on Albany Hill is even further testament to what she has done for the city under her leadership. Now, of course, that's not only her, but leaders often set the culture for the organization. So a benefit should accrue to her from how that turned out. And her colleagues have appointed her vice mayor of the Alameda County City Managers Association, which under normal process, she will be the chair next year. So she has that level of respect from her colleagues. And for myself, while I agree we didn't have formal performance metrics in the way that I'm used to in my work, and in my work, I have a performance review every year. It's tested against the goals of the previous year, and I do get a raise that's based on that, my performance. But the key metric for me was progress on the council strategic plan. Is that being implemented? And the current city manager has done a better job of that than the prior city managers over the last couple of decades that I've observed, both in terms of implementing the plan and being clear about the items in the plan and what has been worked on and what hasn't been worked on. I've seen prior city managers just absolutely refuse to even rate their progress on those despite repeated requests. So for all those reasons, I support this amendment. Yes, Vice Mayor Tiemann.
So I agree with all the points made by the mayor. I just wanted to add a couple thoughts of, I understand people's confusion and difficulty with the process here. I think it's a sort of function of how rarefied a position this is, that we have to do labor discussions and performance reviews in closed session. That allows us to have the conversations we need to have and do the things we need to do. It's I think a difficulty that can't be public, and it's a difficulty because the city manager is its own rarefied position that is not part of that process for any of our other employee groups. But again, I think that points to how this is a very individualized position that is of utmost importance. And to parrot some of what the mayor said, and what we've discussed in our performance, our city manager has really done an exemplary job, especially given constraints and the job getting harder and more numerous. As I think anyone who's worked in local government knows, the job always gets bigger. The people who are there to do it never really seem to catch up. There's never more time in the day. And never has that been more true than during COVID, during the past couple of years, and with the city council. We've pushed hard on a number of things that have taxed both our staff time and our city manager's ability to get everything done, but we have been consistently impressed by the progress that we've made on those goals, on the strategic plan, as well as what we've seen. And I think another part of this, like the closed session, is what most people see of what the city manager does is really only the tip of the iceberg. It is a privilege of us on the council that we see much more of it and talk to the city manager, most of us, every week or so, get her updates. As Preston said, updates that sometimes happen when she's on vacation, as happened with the fire recently. But a really amazing job was done to keep us abreast of that, to coordinate the response. And I think that this resolution, this amendment is acknowledging that, as well as acknowledging that, city managers are the chief executives of large organizations like the city, and that means they are paid more, acknowledging that Albany pays less for this role than any other city, even cities our size, as the mayor pointed out, which I don't think is what we should be aiming for, and that cost of living has gone up and we were not actually keeping up with it. So with that said, I am very happy to see this and think it is a just acknowledgement of good work and a lot of patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I see the city attorney has raised her hand, so I don't know if we're transgressing here.
No, not at all, Mayor Jordan. I just wanted to clarify and reiterate something for the council and for the public. There is in the existing employment agreement a process for performance evaluations. It's laid out in section 6B and is fairly detailed. That process is transparent and it is in the staff report so the public can access that. However, as the Vice Mayor mentioned, that the implementation of that process by the council is done in closed session, and that is confidential, how the performance evaluation occurs. So we do have an existing process that the public is free to read. Again, I mentioned it's in 6B of the existing employment agreement, but the implementation is confidential and done in closed session. And as the mayor correctly also pointed out, the increased compensation is a total of 10% from the existing compensation of $213,655. So it is not 15%, but it is 10%, which includes the 5% longevity pay.
Thank you. Councilmember McQuaid.
Okay, sorry.
No problem.
I have to say I agree with what's been said by the mayor, the vice mayor, Councilmember Neeson. One of the things in local government, I think probably the mantra for all local governments is that you do more with less. And I think over the past few years, we have seen all of our staff do that, but especially the city manager, with just so many new things that had to happen during COVID and had to happen quickly, and people had to change their roles, and she was able to shepherd us through all of that. As somebody already pointed out, it is the lowest paid city manager salary in the county, and that's not a good thing for a city that's not the smallest city in the county. I believe the last actual raise was in 2019. So I think that's an important piece that we need to make this a little more often. And with that, I would like to move we adopt resolution 2022-79, approving amendment number 3 to the employment agreement for city manager services.
Seconded.
And to clarify, Mayor, that includes the modification I made for that typographical error in the base salary.
Thanks to the attorney.
So, Mayor, if I may, you stated that we would discuss the service package. Should we do that now, or should we wait until we update the policy and then vote on that?
I guess I'm not clear. So if this motion that's on the table passes, then the severance would be increased. It would be increased. So I don't know if you're asking to hold on that part or.
That's asking, can we hold on that part until we make the necessary amendment so it can flow properly?
I'm not willing to accept that amendment.
Okay. If you want to go ahead and do the vote, Mayor, I'm ready.
Okay. All right, City Clerk, poll the council.
Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Yes.
Councilmember Gary?
No.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilmember McQuay?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thank you all. And thank you, City Manager. Moving on to item 11-2, designation of voting delegates and alternates for the League of California Cities Annual Conference.
Good evening, Council.
Since
you mentioned that you didn't see my face earlier, I'm turning on my video. This is a recurring item for the council to designate a voting delegate to the annual business meeting held as part of the League of California Cities annual conference. And this year it's scheduled for September 7th through the 9th and in Long Beach. So the council can designate one voting delegate and up to 2 alternates. I'll turn it back to the council to make your choices.
Thank you very much. I see Councilmember McQuaid has her hand raised. This is for questions, or maybe you're going to offer some context or background.
I was going to, I guess, offer context. It's not really a question. Okay. I was just simply going to say that I've already registered for the conference and I am our delegate to the league. So I'm willing to do this if it's the wish of the council.
Okay, well, if there are there other questions about this? Not seeing any questions. Go to public comments, and I will note that I think there are maybe 4 non-staff attendees, and also not counting repeat names. Hello.
Yeah, hello there. So here's my viewpoint. I think, Councilmember McQuaid has a lot of experience. She states she's already on it, kind of thing. So kind of grandfather claused in. But, another viewpoint I have is, Councilmember McQuaid is going to be ending her term in a couple months or in a few months. And then that leaves no experience for the next term. So that means when we do this next year, it's going to be someone brand new that's never done it before. So I think it would be nice if we had someone give it a try now, and maybe Councilmember McQuaid can be an alternate and just kind of help coach, somebody new. So I would vote for either Preston, Aaron, or Janelle, because they haven't had this responsibility yet. And that's one of my concerns, is that this old leadership is kind of still hogging all the old leadership and not making it fair for new leadership to step in and try to learn something new. So I mean no disrespect at all, Ms. McQuaid. I'm kind of an advocate for, new people learning new things. And so I don't know if the council agrees with me or anybody agrees with me, but I would just think that it would be nice if Preston or Aaron or Janelle got a chance to do this with Councilmember McQuaid's leadership still here as an alternate, as a help coaching and a teacher, and to help educate the new city council. Because let me tell you, Councilmember McQuaid has a lot of experience in the city. I've known her for many years, and her experience is very valuable. We may not agree on everything all the time, but nonetheless, she does bring up some really good points, and her experience is very valuable. So I wish for her to educate the new leadership in Albany, and that is Mayor Jordan, Councilmember Gary, and Councilmember Tiedemann. And so with that said, I don't need to continue repeating myself over and over. I tend to do that. But I just want to remind everybody that I think it's fair, I think it's best for the city for Councilmember McQuaid to educate the new council on what it's like. That way next year when we're going into it, it's not brand new, and it's not a whole learning experience without the wisdom of Councilmember McQuaid. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any other hands raised. I saw Councilmember McQuaid raise your hand first, and then we'll go to Vice Mayor Tiedemann.
I just wanted to remind everybody this is a live conference in Long Beach.
Thank you. Yes, Vice Mayor Tiedemann.
Yes, I just wanted to say I would be happy to have Councilmember McQuaid do this. I would also be happy to serve as an alternate, as I serve for her right now in the League of Cities. I will just point out, because she is so diligent, she has never really needed to use my services as an alternate, which is indicative of how many meetings Councilmember McQuaid is willing to go to. And I think, knows the league and would be a good representative. And for worries about the institutional knowledge, I assure everyone that when we lose her wisdom, we will still call on her. She won't be able to escape being drawn on for wisdom about it when we have to find a new delegate for this in a couple months.
A lot for my part, as I explained last meeting in an entirely different context, I cannot travel. I generally do not travel for work because of my caring for my wife. So I am appreciative that there are others. And I guess a question of clarification for Vice Mayor Tiedemann. I think you put yourself, you put yourself forward as an alternate. I presume that means you would go. I'm hoping you would go. I'm hoping that's what that means.
I am happy and willing to commit. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because that is the way the knowledge transfer can happen in part. Are there any other comments? Any other, since we can have two alternates, any other of the other two council members who want to be an alternate? Yes, Vice Mayor Tiedemann.
Seeing no more discussion, I would just move that we designate Councilmember McQuaid as our representative and myself as an alternate.
I will second that. Before getting to voting, I do have another comment, which is I'm continually perturbed by SB 1383. The fact that the state legislature claimed one of the exceptions that is allowed to say that it was not an unfunded mandate when we've received some kind of opinion. I don't know how that's the attorney would characterize it, that at least some components of it, in her view, are an unfunded mandate. I think at least the procurement requirement seems pretty clearly an unfunded mandate. The monitoring requirement, maybe more debatable, but the procurement requirement is, let's say, a few $100,000 a year that is being imposed. And so I would encourage the delegate and the alternate to try to network with other cities. Cal Cities has pushed a request for budget allocation to this, but that's not the same, that's at the discretion of the state government. That is not the same as saying, hey, this is an unfunded mandate, and if you want us to do this, you have to actually pay us by law. And so, Albany is not going to be able to bend the curve on this alone. But if you know other cities, or you can network with other cities around this, and we can start to build a coalition, I'm interested in trying to do something about this. And it's not about supporting the goals of SB 1383 or not. It's just about, fairness and abiding by our state constitution in that regard. So unless there's any other comments, I guess we will go to a vote. City Clerk.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Councilmember McQuay?
Yes.
Councilmember Nason?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tiedemann?
Yes.
Councilmember Gary?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
And I thank you both for taking the time to travel to the conference on Albany's behalf. With that, we come to council reports on appointed representation for Albany, other meetings and events. Are there any volunteers? I don't know that a whole lot has happened since, when did we meet last? Was it the 26th? I can't remember. Anyway, are there any volunteers? Yes, Councilmember Nason.
I did my ACTC meetings, both committee meetings and the organization, the board. And I just wanted to mention that we were not called out for our PCI. We were fortunate because for whatever reason they used the 2019 report, in which we were a 60, I guess, rather than the 2020 where we had gone down a bit. But we are down near the bottom with the ones that did get, we're just a hair above the folks who did get called out. So PCI remains a significant concern for us to be in compliance with our obligations to Alameda County Transportation Commission. I also wanted to say I stopped by the 4th of July celebration, and it looked like lots of people having a wonderful time. It was really quite lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McQuaid.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I also attended the 4th of July event in the park, and I want to express my thanks to the Recreation and Community Services Department. Most of the staff were there. I understand they were there at 6:30 in the morning setting up, and I'm sure they were there late into the afternoon unsetting. And it was so wonderful to see all the little kids. It was mostly families with smaller children and everybody up dancing. And we haven't seen that since Music in the Park. It was certainly fun to see all those little guys out there dancing. I attended the Housing Authority meeting, several League Policy Committee meetings, and East Bay Division. And we haven't really had a chance, but I did attend the Juneteenth event, which was wonderful. Thank you, Councilmember Gary, for your work on that. I attended the ABAG General Assembly meeting, where they discussed possibly a ballot measure for the region, the 9 Bay Area counties, on housing, homelessness, however they're going to phrase that. So that's something we should be watching. I also attended the ACTC for Supervisor Carson. And then I did go to the Senior Center barbecue on Saturday and got to hear their band perform, or their orchestra, whatever they are. That was really fun too, and had good hot dogs. So that's me for the time.
Yeah, I'm remembering, yes, we went late last time, so we skipped this. That's why I'm kind of like, had some confusion in my mind. Vice Mayor Tiedemann or Councilmember Gary?
I don't think I've got any since our last meeting.
All right, Councilmember, and so this would be if you, and I think I filled in for you on EVC board. That's kind of why I was getting confused. Like, wait, that didn't happen the last 2 weeks. But I do need to report on that because we didn't do that last time. So it's for basically the last month. So Councilmember Gary, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to convey.
Thank you, Mayor. So let's see. So Juneteenth celebration was a success. I would like to thank the city, definitely the Public Works Department, Public Safety, Police Department, Fire Department for coming out and showing your support. Appreciate that. The school district who donated the chairs so guests could sit in the hot sun. Appreciate that. As well as our sound guy. He was amazing. So definitely appreciate his services that he brings to the table. I too attended the 4th of July celebration yesterday. It was very nice. I appreciate the music and the families that were out celebrating as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. The meeting that comes to mind that I attended was as alternate for EVCE board, and it considered and passed its budget for the next year. There is a contentious issue going on there, which I think would be useful for the council to be aware of. Vice Mayor Tiedemann may fill in details or correct details. My understanding is that EVC staff brought forward a line item to essentially set aside with details to be worked out, $15 million to give to Children's Hospital over 5 years, so $3 million a year for asthma treatment. And as I understood from the meeting, that $3 million would in part flow to community health clinics. And I think it's fair to say that Children's had quite a few people there that were associated with Children's that were supportive of that, and every other commenter was opposed, saying this is outside the mission of the organization. And staff understood that going into it, and so staff came into the meeting pulling that part of the budget and expressing that they would flesh it out with more details and bring it back to the body, but the contention's not over. I know that Vice Mayor Tiedemann and I have been contacted by at least one person asking to meet. I think he's a representative of a community organization or NGO asking to meet around this issue, because a lot of the people that helped EVC come into existence are perturbed that it would use its funding this way. So that was the main item of discussion at that meeting, and I'd say it's not over yet. And with that, we'll move on to future agenda items. Go around, or people can raise hands if anybody's interested. Yes, Councilmember Gary.
So I know you sent an email to me about some future agenda items that I have been bringing up. I didn't receive a response, so I just need clarity on some of the items that you brought up, especially the one regarding the renters. I don't know if you received, I received an article today basically stating that renters are still waiting on state funding. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's the case here in Albany as far as getting, monies towards helping them stay housed. And so I know you suggested that I write a memo, but if we have money that's set aside and was sent from the federal government to help our city, that should come from the staff as far as what amount is allotted to do that. I think it's important. I'm not sure why we are missing out on the renters right now, especially with, some of the moratoriums, and some landlords have already started, asking for late fees. Some notices have been placed on residents' door to be evicted. And I think we're missing out on this opportunity to save our renters. So I urge you, next meeting, if we can have that conversation so we can see what that looks like and the money that's available so we can have that set up. We have something for our businesses. We have something, for the underserved deserts as far as food deserts, but we don't have anything for the renters. So I really would like to see that. And I'm asking if you could get that on the next agenda. You also stated that I asked for the youth engagement to be brought back. And like I stated in the last meeting, that was just removed because it was suggested that the Social Economic Justice Commission was going to work directly with the youth. Now, since that didn't happen, I'm not sure why I have to draft another memo and ask to bring that back. I'm just asking, but based on the information that's been presented in the past, that it be brought back and we have that discussion and vote on it and see who has an interest of that. And let's see, there's one more thing. Let me pull up the email. You suggested something about the fence that's on Pierce Street, and it's still repaired, so I don't think we need to write a memo to them or a letter. It looks like the damages have been repaired. I went by there yesterday and I don't see a hole, but I think it's a concern for our residents as far as the safety and the amount of break-ins that have happened over time. As far as their city Wi-Fi, I think I've had that discussion with the city manager last year, and I was advised that Public Works was looking into that matter, but I never heard back on yes or no if we can do it. So it's a simple yes, do we want to do this, or no? If it's a need, does the community want it? I don't see why I have to drop a memo for that. And the last thing, I was asking about the Council Board of Education joint meeting, and I know we had some discussion. We did have some emails going back and forth with the school board trying to make that happen, and it just stalled. So I just needed an update on that. So those are things that I'm asking for update and possibly having them on the agenda. But definitely for the renters, I urge you, it is crucial that we do something for our, almost over half of our residents are renters. So why are we not doing anything? And so I just want us to do something to make sure they're in-house.
So my suggestion in tracking these was because Vice Mayor Tiedemann seems to have the most knowledge on the council in terms of what the county policy is around the eviction moratorium ending, which is not aligned with when the state ended the moratorium. It is continuing onward. I suggested that perhaps you could work with him to bring a recommendation to the council because we're going to need something to consider. And my understanding from your reply, and I apologize, I wasn't able to get back to the next iteration of that conversation, was that you get together with him and generate a recommendation with a memo. I do know that we, as a council, we have allocated some of the ARPA funds for residents to apply for, but for reasons I personally can't recall, and I need to go back and watch the meeting, staff brought, as a part of that package, an item to provide rent support via Echo, and we turned it down as a body at that time. Now, maybe the conditions have changed. I cannot remember why we made that decision, but the body of the council made that decision. Yes, Vice Mayor Tiedemann.
So I'll say that my memory of that vote was partly, I think, at least in part, due to my suggestion that we make that funding more flexible than essentially, how rental programs have been designed, of going straight to a landlord. I'll also offer that I've worked on this and sent some guidelines and ideas that I've developed to staff. And as of last update, that will be coming back with our next ARPA funds update which will be sometime after our August break, I think. So I think is coming back, and I've been working on it myself. So I think that will be something we will discuss further soonish.
So, and I think that's where the communication piece is. If one knows something that the other don't, we're spinning our wheels. So if I'm working on something, Vice Mayor Tiedeman's working on something, I mean, it's like so I agree that if there's going to be a collaboration, there needs to be communication across the board. As far as the county, again, we keep pushing back to the county. We are a city, and we're saying our residents are looking for guidance from us, not so much the county. It's great that the county has that available, but as a city, we should be able to protect our residents, make sure they stay housed. We just endorsed a housing element for Alameda County. So why are we not doing anything for our citizens? So that's all I'm asking. If we do collaborate and bring something, have some fundings instead of waiting until the county or waiting till whenever you bring it back, I think we need to act now. And I've been harping over that for the past year or so, that we do something for the renters.
Mayor, can I suggest that while this is an interesting discussion, that we are off of the topic? I think that's what the city attorney has her hand up.
Yeah, that is exactly why I have my hand raised. I think we've gone beyond the topic.
I understand that we're off the topic, but basically I'm just asking that if the mayor, would you please consider bringing that to the, thank you.
And I will do so. I hope that yourself and Vice Mayor Tiedemann now, because I didn't know he was working on this, we'll get together and generate a proposal for the council, go to staff and get the information that you need, because we don't have an agenda item where we've directed staff to provide this. We made the decisions we made on the ARPA funding. So any council member can get something on the agenda, but we need a memo with the recommendation and background from the council member in order to do that. Otherwise, it's not going to, the meeting is not going to be efficient. We need to have something on the table that we're considering. So, and I do support putting it on the next meeting, because I don't know when the county moratorium is going to run out. I don't know when the state of declaration of emergency in the county is going to end. And from what Vice Mayor Tiedemann said in the last meeting, that is the marker for when the moratorium ends. And it's probably not the day the state of emergency is rescinded, but sometime after that. I'm nervous, and I thank you, Councilmember Gary, for bringing this forward. I'm nervous to leave it until September, because I don't know what's going to happen. So I would prefer to take it up at the next meeting. But again, we need something in writing that we can consider.
So thank you, Mayor Jordan. I also sent you an email basically asking for some things that I would need in order to assist Vice Mayor Tiedemann, sorry. And so if you can get those items for me, that would be great. So I can start diving in and looking at how to help assist practice memo. Thank you.
Great. Just so I can be clear, because I wasn't sure. So you sent a request to me, you sent a request to Vice Mayor Tiedemann for information.
So I responded to your email outlining that I needed in order to do the research, because we don't want to duplicate the matters. We just need to have the information available so it can pass. So that's all.
So I would suggest cutting me out.
Okay.
I'm not the knowledge expert here.
That's fine. That's fine.
We can discuss it here. I know we're surfing the edge, but I'm discussing it here because we're talking about a future agenda item and how we're scheduling it.
That's fine.
And so that's part of the difficulty for me, is like, I can't really, yeah. So if you just go direct to each other, that would be great.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay. And I will get back to you on the rest. I mean, we can go into that now, but I'll get back to you on the rest. And any other council members who have future agenda items?
I know I still have to submit some change to the sustainability language. I have that on my screen.
Yeah, okay. And then I'm the other outstanding item that I was tracking, and I took that one off my tracking just for transparency, because I know that you need to do it, and it's, we're waiting for it. You expressed interest in a statement on horse racing. I can't recall if you're still have that.
Yeah, that's another one on my plate, but I've been waiting for the closure of the ballot, which I think has now occurred, and so I'll be looking at that this week.
Yes, okay. And we might coordinate on that, because I intended to queue up a message to the city attorney trying to explain to me as an individual council member, what does this actually mean for Albany? I mean, I have some concept, but
the ballot measures. Yeah.
So, but yes, I'd be interested in coordinating with you if you're interested.
Okay, I appreciate that. Good.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I think we have four members of the public still in attendance. Thank you for hanging with us. And one of them has their hand raised. So City Clerk, if you could admit them to discuss future agenda items.
Yeah, future agenda items. This is Jeremiah. To create a municipal code to where there's no drinking alcohol on Solano, just like there's no smoking tobacco on Solano. So that for sure. Another one is school zones, school safety zones, having that be part of our municipal code as well. And also create sunrising the Golden Gate Fields Task Force and also sunrising the Youth Task Force. And I encourage all city council to attend the SEJC tomorrow night because we have put together a subcommittee for the Youth Task Force, have put together a great plan, and we're recommending to SEJC for approval to recommend to City Council for re-sunrising the Youth Task Force. And we've got some great ideas regarding that, and I'll send you an email. And I really hope you attend tomorrow night's SEJC meeting. That way you can listen to our Youth Task Force subcommittee report. And Will Bainan and I have been working great together. And so, so I hope you all attend tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I believe we have gone through an agenda in 2.5 hours, accounting for my 3 minutes of fumbling around at the beginning. Unless anybody else has anything else under announcements. Not seeing anybody indicating they do. Thank you all. Thank you, Vice Mayor Tiedemann, Councilmember Nason, Councilmember McQuaid, and Councilmember Gary, City Manager, City Attorney, City Clerk, and as always, KALB, diligently behind the scenes. Appreciate your service to the city, and we are adjourned.